program. Like, hey,
Okay,
welcome.
and we're live.
Yeah, Bootleg Weekly, just on time. No, we're in honor of Tanner, who is not part of Bootleg Weekly. We started a minute late, so he again is a reason why we're late. It just
He finished his show late, and then we had to start late as a result. So it's technically his fault.
yes, always his fault. So how you doing, Tevis? How you doing?
Sorry, I'm doing well. I had to mute the stream was going on the other screen. I'm doing well, man. I'm doing good. I bought some hymns today. Nate, classic Nate, followed me into that position, which is a bad move because it went down immediately after I bought it. But I'm going to be looking to buy some more potentially. We'll see how it goes. We could talk about it. I think we also have a couple of other topics to talk
Kelly
about tonight.
Kelly, type if you're a Hims shareholder. I can't remember if you are or not, but Nate, I'll give you some free financial advice. If this man buys a position, just wait a little bit.
Sell.
Because that is a sell signal. It's a classic one. It's actually stronger than reverse Jim or reverse Kathy or anything like that. Or reverse Ross Gerber, which we'll talk about tonight. But just let him do damage to the stock, get it at a cheaper price. I mean, I might be buying Hims at 10. I don't know. We'll see.
Not supposed to go down after you buy Hims. Yep. Well, we're going to test that theory.
Well played.
We'll see how that goes. But yeah, man, I've been looking at the stock. It's actually interesting. And if Tanner were here, he would tell you, he and I last year, and I can't believe it's been a year, but last year we had this show called The Stock Tank, and pretty much like 80% of the positions that we talked about have done incredibly well. Like we talked about Adyen at, $6, $7, that went up quite a bit. We talked about Hims at like $6, $7, that went up quite a bit. We talked about Nubank at $6, $7. We talked about Palantir at like 15, 16. We talked about like a lot of positions that have done well. And so my point is that I was watching and following the stock ever since Adam presented it on the Stock Tank last year. And I just never had a, position. And then, I finally just went in on this Eli Lilly news. I don't think it's going to be like that. Well, we'll see, right? Because it's going to increase competition. But how much do you know about Hims?
I did a little more research today. I mean, data-driven investing. Chris Hagar has been in the position, and I pretty selective on who I follow. Although a lot of the people in the chat, I do follow you guys. So, so I follow that. There's a couple other people that I kind of loosely follow that post stuff, and then I did more research again today just because. You mentioned you bought it, so I'm like, ooh, I might get this at $10 a share. Is it worth it? So, I mean, they look interesting. Like they're growing rapidly. It's a space that it seems like I don't know what the expected CAGR is in that industry, but I mean, you can see a lot of vectors. Eli Lilly joining it is sent the stock down, but it's not as bearish as it would seem. Like Eli Lilly, really good company. This is really not their core competency necessarily. Really good for consumers, by the way. But what it signals is that there is a large and growing opportunity in the market. Now, will Eli Lilly seize a bunch of that? Maybe. I don't know. But it's at least a signal that Hims is in a space that a lot of people are interested in for a good reason. So, I don't know. I'd have to learn more about it. But as far as a competition angle, like there's Ro or Roman. There's like some hair loss stuff. There is Amazon has a space in that. Walmart, I think, got out. Costco is looking at getting into this type of industry. TDOC has a little bit of overlap, but they're terrible, so I wouldn't count on them. Of course, Eli Lilly today, and there's a number of others that are smaller and more specialized. What do you have any concerns with competition?
So I think one of the things that I really liked about them, aside from their growth rate, is how they're sustainably diversifying to different product lines while maintaining that strong presence that's backed up by their brand and their sort of values. a lot of this stuff has been dominated for such a long time by just big pharma, and you need prescriptions, and it's just like convoluted system. And I think their approach going DTC, going subscription based is really interesting. That's the thing that originally intrigued me about them. But back, when I was looking at them, they really had, 2 or 3 products. And now with the weight loss, products as well, and just their expansion overall. Like I read their Q2 report earlier today in the morning. It's just first of all, the growth is crazy. They're now profitable, and they're expanding sustainably. Their member counts are growing really fast. I think there's going to be more competition, but again, they're going to be competing with different people in different spaces, right? And so I think Eli Lilly coming into that space and just reducing their weight loss drug by half price, basically, like it validates the market that Hims is going after. And I think the market is going to be gigantic, especially because you're talking about like a weight loss drug, a magic pill to lose weight for Americans. Like, bro, that's as like close to striking gold as you can get in that market. I think big organizations, these big pharma players are taking more notice, and they're going to try to encroach. And then you also have these more innovative players, right? Like Amazon, you have Roe, you have all of these other players in the space that are going to eat into margins as more competition gets in. They're going to eat into the margins. I mean, right now, I think like I have something like 100 shares or something, $1,500. It's not a big, it's like, I think my smallest position out of every position I own, and I own like 45 positions, but it's just there to just be in my portfolio so that I can be reminded of it, to essentially keep track of it, keep studying it. I want to add it. I mentioned in my post when I bought it, I was like, look, it's 1.5K right now. I see this being like a 3 to 5K position. I don't see it being over 10K, depending on how they do. Like if I find something that I really like, I think for me, I'll buy positions, and as I read more about them, as I like the story more, as I like the narrative, as I like the numbers and the growth rates, the metrics, then I'll just start to buy and buy and buy. And SoFi, for example, is completely overweight. It's 17% of my entire portfolio. It didn't start off like that. It started out as a little 2K position. And the reason is because they kept posting great numbers, and the market didn't really respect that. And I just felt that there was alpha there to be had. And I still do think that, right? And so it's been difficult for me to start and build new positions like Celsius, for example. I want to build heavier, On Running has just been, on crazy performance. Hims as well. Like there's a ton of stuff that I want to just buy up, but it's tough, right? Because they're always competing against like me buying more SoFi. And so my point is that if I really like something, I'll start off with a small position, and then I'll just eventually build up more and more from there, depending on like as my competence to talk about that subject grows, my position relative to that is going to grow. Trying to have a strong correlation between mind share and market share.
Yeah, the crazy thing to me, like, so we have very different style of investing. We like a lot of the same companies, although you're like, hey, if I like it, I'm going to buy a small piece, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. And then if a company strengthens, if it gets cheaper, even while it strengthens, like you just keep adding, and that's not a bad way to do it. It's frustrating. So my newest position is Nubank. It's position number 7, I believe, 6.
Mm-hmm.
Very selective, small portfolio. It's like 1%, 1.5% of my portfolio. I wanted to grow it to 5, and it just like I got in at 12. I'm like, hey, that's a good price. It's like 14 something right now, and it just keeps running. I'm like, and sometimes it's the right thing to average up. It's a strong company. It's already expensive. Hims is one of those, like if you look at the PE, and it's the wrong measure to use on Hims, frankly. It's like 200. So forward PE is like a little bit under 100, but they have tremendous growth. PEG, I think, is a little bit better, but a newly profitable company like that's just not the best measure. Now, as far as the competition piece, my 2 cents, and again, I'm not in HIMS. They seem like that they have a little something there. I don't know how credible the other competition is. Nate had a good comment on that Eli Lilly is not really competing, at least not yet. Costco, again, is one of those two. That would be great. That would actually send HIMS and SoFi to the moon. So, but just because there's competition in a space doesn't mean that's a bad space to be in. It signals that it's in a growing industry. And if you have a very credible, strong company that has innovation and leadership and good execution, I don't know about the leadership piece, but it seems like HIMS has maybe the rest of that.
It's founder led, right? So
yeah, that doesn't. But that
I know, but it's a strong sign.
It's I don't know. There's plenty of founder led companies that they don't make it. Now HIMS has done it in a tougher environment, so I think it probably is indicative of decent leadership, if not strong leadership. But I mean, that's thrown around way too much. If it's founder led, so it's better. So one of these discussions today was why I'm not in Block. Now I like Block. I just don't like Jack. He is a founder. He left. He came back. Kind of left. Not really officially. I don't think he's great at a company at this stage. It's rare for a founder to actually. So there's guys. Well, let me take a step back. There's founders that are great at startups and getting that business off the ground and running and the vision and getting the organization and people in place, doing those initial mergers and acquisitions, infusing this identity and culture into the organization. But with those guys, a couple of different things can happen, and they could just be not the right person to actually take it to the next stage. They're great at starting up things. They're not great at sticking with it when it's not as new and exciting. It's kind of like someone getting married and then 5 years later, they're tired of the wife, they divorce and they marry somebody else. It's they're great at that initial couple of years. And after the honeymoon kind of wears off, they're like, yeah, I'm bored. I'm moving on.
I've worked in product management, for the past 7-8 years. And during that time, I generally have a 2-year sweet spot at any given place. Some companies I've worked there for 1.5 years and I've moved. And some companies, I think my longest was 2.5 years. And they fluctuated between super startup to scale up with 100 people, doing maybe double-digit millions, all the way to publicly traded companies that I've worked for. And let me tell you, the skill set is drastically different between those sizes of companies. And so it's very difficult for the founder to be the 0 to 1 person. Yeah. And then, the 1 to many. And I've faced many CEOs who struggle with that because for 0 to 1, the required skill set is to be a very deep generalist, to wear all the hats, to have your hand in sort of all the cookie jars, like operations, sales, support, product, whatever. Whereas after you reach a certain critical mass, a certain tipping point, and you get funding, maybe you raise an A round, maybe you raise a B round, whatever, you hire subject matter experts to go lead individual departments. And they're the people who go 10 layers deeper into those departments. And you have to now, as the CEO, take a more holistic macro view of your business to say, okay, what is the vision, the strategy, the high level stuff? But I can't be in the weeds of the granular stuff anymore because it doesn't make sense for me to do that. I'm not going to hire smart people and put them in a box. And so I think the founders who lead their companies from day one all the way to Zuckerberg today, $1 trillion company, that's a very incredibly rare skill set. The reason why I like it is because those are the people who have a strong vision for their product. And it's I would never want this, Ford CEOs or GM CEOs or whatever to think 5 years, get their stock options, and then, carry on with their life and get a big payday and retire.
Yeah.
For many of these founders, most of them, this is their life. This is their legacy. This is what they want to, quote unquote, leave behind, or what they want to be known for. Their entire persona is wrapped around the success of this business. Now it's different, of course. I mean, with many of these businesses, you have serial entrepreneurs and whatnot. But the point being is you want that long-term mindset, and you want that deep sense of responsibility towards that business. And I think founder-led businesses, large part, allow for that. So that's the reason why I think it's a plus. Obviously, it comes with a whole, big fat asterisk beside it in terms of can they execute or not.
Yeah. Well, I think it's overplayed. Like founder led automatically makes it good in some people's mind. You're not saying that, but it does show that the founder is at least capable of something, um, and especially if it's been around for a while. So Hims, I don't remember. I know that they were around for several years before they went public. So it's not just a create it and within like 2 years they went public or something like that. So
Not only that, man, like you don't have businesses like that. And like, let me sort of share a little bit of the inside baseball with you guys. We have businesses that from the moment they raise an A round, maybe even seed round, like they'll have a board of directors whom they are accountable to because all of a sudden it's investors' money. And by the time they raise a C round or a D or an F round or whatever, like by the time they're getting ready to go public, the board probably owns like a majority, ownership stake at that business. And the founder is like, oh, the founder owns 20% still. And that's like really good. You have to be crazy to think that the board is not talking about, can the CEO be the one to take us public? Can the CEO be the one to continue to have success with us? Especially because like even right now, I'm on the leadership team of a company and we have to meet with our board on a quarterly basis. We have to report to our board on a monthly basis. And so it's just like hurdles upon hurdles of accountability and responsibility with these investors. And the investors have some pretty tight timelines and they have some pretty high expectations of execution. And so if a founder was not executing at that point, they would not like the filtering mechanism is going public. Founders who make it through going public generally have had a track record of executing with their own board of directors to some degree. Now, of course, there's businesses that go from foundation to public company in like 3 years, which is incredibly quick. But most businesses are like, 7 years plus because they need to raise rounds and grow sustainably. So my point is that in large part, they're already like pre-vetted somewhat by their own board for them to even make it to the point where they go public.
Yeah, and your work at SpaceX is helpful in that. So I guess no, just kidding. That would be really cool if you worked for them. But yeah, no, that insight's good and useful. I just think it's overplayed. Like it just because it's founder led doesn't mean it's going to be a tremendous success or a leader in the market. When you there's challenges that you face as a CEO of a public company that you will not face when you're a startup, when you're in the VC rounds. And that's just the nature of the beast. And you don't really know. It's kind of like baseball. It's one sport that I follow a fair bit, that they have minor leagues, they have college. Just you might be a tremendous college athlete, but that may not translate even to the minors. You might hit at AAA. That's the level right below major leagues. It'd be phenomenal. Look like you're amazing. You get to the majors and you're gone after 40 plate appearances. You're gone. You didn't make it. You never know. So, Hims seems like it might be good. I have to do more research personally. If you keep buying and it keeps tanking the stock as a result, because that's the only reason why it would go down. I don't know. I'm interested. It's not fully on the radar, but it's enough that I'm paying. I have like one eyelid open and I'm not like fully awake to it. But yeah, we'll have to see.
Yep.
So
and by the way, I made a post on X about this, and I said at the end of that post, I'll make a video if there's enough people who want to see that video. I'm going on a little trip on Thursday, and my commitment is to have one more SoFi video between now and that. I have to find a time at some point or another between now and Thursday morning because I'm coming back on Tuesday. And so likely I won't be able to make a video. I might still do the SoFi Weekly this week, but not sure. In addition to that, I was thinking about making a Hims video, but at the same time, I don't want to be reading up on stocks in my vacation. So we'll see what happens. But if there is people who want to see that hymns video, just let me know, throw it in the chat, and I can definitely make one just to explain what I'm seeing and why I'm
I
buying
want
the
to see it.
stock.
I'll watch it. I'm excited for that. It's helpful. Honestly, you do a good job of breaking those down, and just from a not overwhelming perspective. Like sometimes those videos of other creators can, and I won't name names, can go like 50 minutes. If I was making videos, that would be the type that I would make. But
You're talking about Tanner.
I'm not naming names. It's somebody else that's in Canada.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's pivot just a little bit. So speaking of founders, the founder of Telegram was arrested, and of course Telegram. I know Telegram as that's what my army of 15 bots spams left and right. I'm sure. By the way, I don't use Telegram, so
yeah.
But yeah, he was arrested in France this last week by Macron, or on order of Macron, just because there was a lot of scammy type things that are happening on the Telegram platform. Not that the CEO was doing it; he says that he's allowing it just for free speech. Any thoughts on that, Tevis?
Yeah, I think it's quite ridiculous. As I was looking at that news, like, this is equivalent to like if you rob a bank, Roy, and you use a BMW as your getaway vehicle for the authorities to just come after the CEO of BMW. It's just at some point you have to draw a line, because if you make that law wide enough, everybody can be eligible to be arrested by that law.
Yeah, especially it would impact social media companies, but like everybody ultimately. So, you'd have Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk getting arrested. By the way, social media is one of those that there's a lot of competition there. And you see what, like Meta, for instance, publicly traded company. I don't
Right.
like the company. I respect Zuckerberg a little bit more for what he just did either today or late yesterday. And we'll talk about that in just a second. But I don't like him very much, but I mean, they're killing it. So going back to him just briefly, even though there's a lot of competition, it doesn't mean that's not good. You just have to know how good the company actually is. So as far as Mark Zuckerberg, go ahead and throw that up, Tevis. I thought that this was interesting.
You're not sharing anything.
I put it in the private chat. Did I not?
Oh, yes. Let me.
I should have labeled it. My apologies.
Oh, good.
So I think it's the first one.
Yeah. Okay.
If not, then it's the next one. So Mark Zuckerberg said this. So,
okay.
Basically, he was Biden and Harris, and I know we're delving a little bit into politics and stuff, but there's overlap in the actual business world too here. Said that yes, in 2021, senior officials from the Biden administration, including the White House, repeatedly pressured our teams for months to censor certain COVID-19 content, including humor, satire, and expressed a lot of frustration with our teams when we didn't agree. Ultimately, it was our decision whether or not to take down content, and we own our own decisions. And he's now saying, yeah, government pressure is wrong. There was some regret that they shouldn't have done what they did. I don't think that they always censored it, but I saw it myself. Many conservatives were saying this as well, and people that had questions or skeptics or were doing humor. But it got to the point where I don't remember the word that was used, but there was a word that was used on both Twitter and Facebook that, and probably Instagram as well, that was always used in place of COVID, because you couldn't say anything about COVID. Otherwise, you'd instantly have things taken down. So it's nice to at least hear an admission that, hey, this actually happened. Does this change? Well, so my view on Zuckerberg, it doesn't really change my view on him much. I still don't like the guy. I don't trust the guy. A lot of it comes back to the willingness to censorship. That's one of the reasons why I think Telegram is just filled with bots and scammers. I'm sure there's some good stuff on there too. I've never been on it other than just briefly, like the actual platform, to get the army of scammers going. No, just kidding. But I know there's a lot on Facebook, on YouTube, on X. But yeah, ultimately, I think that there is, when the government is saying, "Hey, do this," and you do that, you own that. Like, that's you. You can't just say, "Well, there's a lot of pressure and this and that." We've seen Elon Musk's willingness to not capitulate towards Brazil, for instance, that they've had a lot of election issues in some other countries as well. that they just say, hey, we're a free speech platform. That said, you're a content creator. You might feel differently because there are a lot of scammers.
So I think a couple things. First of all, it becomes a slippery slope in terms of what you choose. Like if you are sitting somewhere on the spectrum of we publish everything or we censor everything, somewhere in between is a very slippery slope where you can have your rubber arm twisted if you're Zuckerberg by governments. Because at the end of the day, one of the things here that I'm thinking about is incentives. What incentive would he have to publish this now or to share this information now? There's something either going on behind the scenes that's forcing his hand, or he is doing it opportunistically. And by opportunistically, what I mean is maybe he sees the writing on the wall that a Republican administration is about to take power. I'm just speculating, but let's just say. And we've heard from the Republican administration how they feel about Facebook because of, their policy over the past couple of years to favor one party over another. And now he's trying to move more towards the middle by calling out, the government pressure. But I also think that it opens the door for investigations to happen around this and for more information to be published, right? Because if it is something opportunistic where he's like, okay, well, if the Republicans win, I want to be seen as neutral instead of, hiding this information and then going through 4 years of being at odds with the government. So I think, and I don't know, that's just me speculating. I just think that, the people watching, you're critical thinkers, you're logical people, that if you think about the incentives, what benefit does it provide him to share this information now versus a year ago or versus a year from now? And so I really do think that there's either some pressure behind the scenes that we're not seeing or we're not privy to, or some backdoor conversation, or I think that they're doing it strategically to front run something.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious if that's the case. I know that the government itself has been a little bit front running things a bit. I wonder if it's out of concern of being investigated if Trump wins and he says, you know what, let's do this, because I don't think he's exactly thrilled with Mark Zuckerberg. Seems to be enamored with Musk right now, but
This is I agree with this comment. Like that's my personal view, and that's the thing that I thought of first when I thought about like, hey, why would he even do this? Is because like by and large, you're not gonna bite the hand that feeds you, unless that's not going to be the case anymore.
Now,
But
what's
again,
interesting?
I don't know. Maybe it was a Telegram thing, and he had like a come to Jesus moment. He woke up one night, he was like, "Oh crap, I got to come and be honest." Who knows, man?
I hope so. And like he can change.
Sure.
If he does, we'll see. I'm skeptical. It kind of goes back, like had me thinking of the TikTok incident. So, of course, the Biden administration, and not every Democrat, but a lot of Democrats and a lot of Republicans too, have basically attempted to force TikTok's hand to be sold to a U.S. firm or be banned. Trump, of course, opposed that. He's made mention of that a number of times. And so I'm curious, though, it's a little bit two-faced if he comes in. On the one hand, he wants to let TikTok do what it wants to do, and then wants to do some sort of investigation or breaking up of a monopoly, what have you, with Meta. That's an American company. As much as I don't like Meta, that'd just be wrong. But any thoughts on that? And otherwise, we can move on to my favorite analyst.
No, I mean, a lot of that is just, I think, positioning. Like you're jockeying for a better seat at the negotiating table by, saber rattling and flexing, and without having any intention of having your bluff called. I'm not saying that TikTok, like will be having a long future, or whether governments prefer one or the other. Or like I'm not saying any stance. I'm just saying, like, going back to my earlier point, like you got to look at what the potential incentives are, what the potential benefits are. And that's tough to do sometimes because we don't have all the information. And so we're operating on a very one-dimensional, playing field. But some things are fairly clear just given all the news that we consume on a daily basis.
You should send Matt an invite, by the way. I doubt he'll join, but maybe. So
Matt is like the boy who cried wolf, man. He always wants an invite and he never joins. So
yeah. One time. I will say, on HIMS and Rocket Lab is on the radar when I don't remember what tweet it was. It was very basic. Like I follow Matt, so I see a lot of Rocket Lab stuff. I had some debate back and forth. I still think it's early. I know the stock has pumped up a lot, and we talked about it a few weeks ago. I'm more interested in Rocket Lab just because that's a space where you can see the TAM growing. There's a lot less competition. And I know the leadership well enough now that I feel like that they have really good leadership in place, more so than HIMS. Not that I wouldn't be interested in HIMS at some price. I've not done the research yet. So,
yeah. I mean, if you say Rocket Lab 3 times in front of a mirror, Matt will appear and, give you the bull case. But
let's see. Rocket Lab. He's
so
coming.
We'll see if he gets here and talks to us about Rocket Lab for another 40 minutes. That'd be amazing.
So let's talk about, before Matt arrives, if he does, my favorite analyst. So have you heard of Ross Gerber before, Tevis?
That's your favorite analyst.
Favorite analyst to
it's between Ross and Kathy, or what's the actually speak of the devil.
It works.
I was joining before you started saying that, but I was like, now I definitely have to.
Yeah. Triple Rocket Lab. So
you
there we go.
Him. He's like a genie.
Yeah. So you have any thoughts on HIMS at all, Matt, or any update on Rocket Lab that you want to share with us right quick?
I don't really have much on HIMS. I know we bought it for the public portfolio. I think we've sold about 2/3 of our position when it got into like the 20s. That's the Cashflow Chronicles public portfolio that Chris and I have. I think we still have 5 shares or something like that. I've wanted to sell it for a while. And for some reason, Chris has been wanting to hold on to it, maybe just drop his eye on the ball on that one. But I think it's an opportunity. I mean, especially if they continue to be able to sell some of these, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Off prescription sort of drugs that they're able to kind of get to the masses. Yeah, over the counter sort of stuff. Come up with their own formulas, etc. I don't know how the hell they're doing it, but I don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, I would like to say I'm wrong because I think about a year ago I made a video about it, and I was kind of concerned about how much money they were spending on the marketing. Yeah. But it seems like it's doing really well. So I think I wrote that when it was like $6 or $7 or maybe less, and I was wrong. It's done really well, but we'll see there. And I'd like to note to people that I think it's surprising that people think that Rocket Lab is going back down. I think it's pretty funny. I'm like in a Rocket Lab chat, and they're like, "Oh my god, like I don't know if I can handle waiting for so long to get like back up to." And I'm just like, "What do you expect, right?" Like, there's nothing of true substance. Like, yes, there's some milestones that have been crossed, but nothing earth-shattering that would mean that it should have like a stair step in valuation change. So I thought it was pretty interesting when folks were surprised, and I was like, "Why do you think I'm selling covered calls?" Right? Like, I don't like if I thought it was going to go to the moon. And I think a lot of it, a lot of new investors, they might not necessarily be thinking long-term about it. It might be their first opportunity where they've seen something 40, 50% up in a short amount of time. So I try to give some grace there, but it goes back to telling people, I mean, understand why you're in the stock, right? I'm not getting excited about a $7 or $8 stock price on Rocket Lab. I'm excited when it gets to 50 or $60, right? I mean, that's what I'll really get excited.
Or $2 or $3. That would be exciting too, of a different.
Yeah. I mean, if everything's going in the right direction still, and it drops down to $2 to $3, right? Like if the milestones are still being met, they're getting new contracts, and it still drops, to $2 to $3. But
I will say, so I don't remember the exact comment, but you said like Rocket Lab, pay attention, or like some little stupid thing. And I've been looking at it. The talk that we had last time, it was enough that when you said like pay attention or whatever, I don't know if you remember, but I said okay, and that was it. Like my shortest tweet ever, probably.
Yeah, I remember that.
That was the moment that I moved Rocket Lab on the radar, my very small list of companies that I'm willing to invest in at a certain price. If it falls to that, it's it pumped, and there's a reason, like it's a narrative shift. But if it falls back down to like probably $5, I'll take a starter position on it, and there's a chance it is. It's like $6. So yeah. But congratulations, regardless, even if the gains are fleeting. I mean, it's pretty clear the direction that company is going. I'm not as bullish on it probably as anything else in my portfolio, but it's up there. Like I see, it's hard for me to see it not do well. Versus him, I can see arguments against it. And by the way, with HIMS, we got time for this. There is an AI component with HIMS. My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you guys know more about it than I do, that they take a lot of data from a lot of prescription fillers and doctors, maybe the different sources, and they match it to your portfolio, your elements and everything, and they use AI to inform that algorithm to be able to determine dosage, prescription amounts, and they claim that that's a lot more efficient and accurate than what's happening right now. And at least in my perspective, like I've talked to a lot of people that have had a lot of issues and mess ups initially with prescriptions. It almost feels like they're a guinea pig while people are trying to get these prescription balances right for a little while. So any thoughts on like that AI piece? Because that did interest me.
Yeah, like I think, again, every vertical is going to see a lift from AI in one way or another, whether in terms of efficiency gains, back of house, they can do more things faster, or front of house where they can essentially sell the AI, right? I think for HIMS, like AI here isn't the play. I haven't heard of anything with regards to AI. Not every, like AI could be a part of it, but not everything needs to have AI in terms of a bull case, right? It doesn't need to be AI powered. And what I mean by that is that the product offering is differentiated sufficiently as is, because they're competing in large part with legacy pharma, over the counter convoluted process. And so just from a branding, alignment of mission and values, marketing perspective, and the fact that it's a DTC subscription brand is sufficiently differentiating for them to capture market share without the need to embed sort of an AI take on their growth story, if that makes sense. Like they could be using it, but I don't think that's the thing that people lead with.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's something that I got to do a little more DD on. Let's pivot. So my favorite analyst, just to make fun of, and Matt, you are familiar with this guy, I'm sure. Throw that tweet up if you don't mind, Tevis. Ross Gerber. Gerber Kawasaki Fund Manager. So GK. He came out with some news earlier. So he, I think, arose to the scene, certainly during COVID. I think largely because his fund and himself, were very, very invested in Tesla and Elon Musk, that whole story. And he made an announcement, a proclamation. He said, nope, we are actually going to get out of Tesla. He's been critical of Elon Musk for, it seems like a couple of years at this point. And now finally says he's dumping the stock because nobody wants the company's cars or robots. Well, they don't really have robots for sale yet, but okay. Here is how good of an analyst I think that he is. So imagine starting midway through 2021 in a raging bull market. Yeah, 2022 is tough, but to have a public traded fund that is still down 16.42% in like basically, a good chunk of that time in late 2022 through 2023, like everybody did really well. So it's like, I don't know. Matt, you might know him for his take in another stock that we hold. You know what I'm talking about?
That I do. Yes. Palantir. Good time.
Do you remember what he said about Palantir, Alex Karp? Any particulars?
Oh man, he said so many good ones. You'll have to remind me.
That it's a public funded branch of the CIA. That Alex Karp is evil, that Palantir is the most evil company, or Alex Karp is the most evil man in the world.
Are you guys talking about that consulting company?
Yeah, that black box consulting company. Yeah,
according to Ross Gerber, yes. I mean, like, and it was funny. So he went on Dave Lee's channel, and they were talking about Tesla and some other things. This is a couple of years ago, and Dave asked him about Palantir and got that response. Dave, credible guy, big Palantir bull. I think that's all he owns, actually. He gave some pushback.
Dave Lee, you mean Tesla bull?
Yeah.
Okay, he said Palantir, but it's okay.
Oh yeah, not Palantir bull. Sorry, I was like, yeah, what did I say? So he gave some pushback and Ross just completely rejected it, laughed it off. He's been corrected a number of times. I don't know if there's something wrong with his brain, too many drugs, too much pride. I don't know what it is. Something's wrong with the guy. So I feel the same way when Ross Gerber says, hey, I'm dumping this, I'm getting rid of it, or it's a garbage company, or they work for the CIA, the same way that I do when I hear that Tevis is buying a stock, but the reverse. So it's like, Gerber, man, he might pump this to the moon, just like a Jim Cramer sell signal. So we'll see. Any thoughts on Gerber's take on Tesla? Does nobody want the vehicles anymore, or robots?
I thought it was interesting because he was against Elon's big pay package, right? And he was a big proponent of applauding it when it was kind of initially announced several years ago, and then when it actually came to pay it, he flip flopped, which I think is kind of
bullshit, because he supported it before he had achieved all of those shareholder returns, and then afterwards he was like, stock's been flat for 2 years, why should we give this guy more money? It's like, dude, where is your sense of like, where are your, and anyways, it doesn't. I think he even sold Tesla to go into, was it Rivian, or it was another, like
Polestar.
Was it Polestar?
Yeah.
How'd that go?
Last I looked, and this is a few months ago, it wasn't looking too good. Most EV players not looking too good, other than Tesla.
So yeah. Anyways, Ross dumping Tesla, like, I don't really care. Like, his own performance has led to his irrelevance. Regardless. Like, and you, as you extrapolate that over time, the less these salacious, news articles hit. Because if it was Ron Barron dumping Tesla, I'd be like, holy shit, like, get him on CNBC ASAP, and I want to see what this guy has to say. But if it's Ross dumping Tesla, then I'm like, If it's Kathy dumping Tesla, I'm like, because she's done it before to buy, Teladoc and other stocks. So
she's more today. Yeah. Kathy, Kathy was one of those that was made famous too, largely because of outperformance during COVID years, largely also because of Tesla. Honestly, like, that was. And that was one of those stocks, when it runs, or when a major stock runs and captures retail and even the big players' imagination, like, that can make names, but then you can lose it really rapidly.
Yeah, and look, I'll take the middle ground on Kathy and sort of play devil's advocate to defend her a little bit. Like, I'm a fan of innovation funds. I think there is a place in this world for them. I think that, having a vision that goes against the grain, or is a little bit more long dated, where you're sacrificing short-term returns for long-term, exponential returns, there's a place in this world for it. I think where Kathy stumbled was after Tesla did like a 10x in no time, she sort of adjusted her price targets to like crazy high levels. And the market, like, she didn't correct for the fact that it could have been an outlier that Tesla made that move, or the fact that Tesla was flat for 10 years before it made that move. And so I think that's where she started having that irrelevance, is not associating 2021 being like a ZERP easy money time with her price targets. And then you go into 2022 and she gets slaughtered. 2023, she gets slaughtered. And now she's like selling names at a quarter of the price that she bought them. I'm like, that's fine. We've all been there, but she's still making bullish, like, she's still coming out with $3,000 price targets on Tesla. And I'm like, girl, like, what's going on? You bought Zoom at 200. You're saying Zoom is going to go to 1,000. You sell Zoom at 60. And like, that's fine. Like, take the L. We've all done it. I've done it. In 2021, I bought stocks that have gone down 70%. You just, you take the L. You don't come out the next day and like, Tesla's going to, 20x. You're like, what the fuck is going on? Like, have you learned?
And if it is going to 20x, why do you sell it when it goes up 20%?
It's the other thing.
I know balancing is part of it, but yeah. So as far as the next piece, the country that I love to hate on, Canada, did it again. Tevis, if you have a link, you can throw it up. I don't think we necessarily need to, but can you tell us what happened between Canada and EVs and how that might impact Tesla? Because we have a disagreement. So that can be the tiebreaker.
Yeah, let me see if I can get the link up on the screen. It's in our chat somewhere. I'll just find it and throw it up on the screen. But basically what happened was Canada announced on Tuesday a 100% tariff on Chinese EV imports and a 25% tariff on Chinese aluminum and steel, Reuters reports. So I initially posted a tweet saying this is bullish for Tesla, and then like after 30 minutes, I deleted that tweet. Roy, your stance is that it's bullish for Tesla. I sort of have a different take. Maybe you go first.
So to give some context, right now, Teslas are not shipped from the United States to Canada. Instead, they're shipped from Shanghai factory to Canada. So that's a problem. And the Shanghai factory is larger than, I believe, any other in the world. I may be wrong. But if not, it's the second largest, and it's close. I've heard, the quality control is even better and more strict in Shanghai. Don't know if that's true. That's just what I've heard. But what this does is it limits competition that's coming in from China. So BYD, if BYD or NIO or XPeng or any of the many other players that are Chinese EV companies, and some of them seem like that they're quite good, they can sell at just ridiculous subsidized prices when they come into the sub-Chinese market, which is Canada, then they're going to have a massive, massive import. So what Tesla can do is, even though it's more expensive to manufacture these vehicles, they can shift some of the production from Fremont, probably more so than Austin, and send that up to Canada instead. So there's no import duty or anything due to NAFTA on that, and so basically it's crowding out competition in that space. I think Tesla, anyways, does really, really well, although there's credible competition from China. So I don't think it's like amazingly bullish for Tesla, but I do think it's preventing some competition from China. Same thing though. There's not any credible EV companies in Canada. I know there's some that are developing and working and making products, but yeah, largely if somebody wants an EV, then it's going to be coming from Tesla, probably from the Fremont factory, and with pretty decent margins for Tesla. So Tevis, you want to give your take, and then Matt, you can be the tiebreaker.
So I clicked on ETF's Reuters link that he posted in the chat, and it just totally nuked my computer because I have like 300 tabs running in the background. So I had to close them all except for this tab. I didn't hear most of that because I was trying to fix my computer. Basically, yes, other Chinese EVs can't sell in Canada at all because they're priced out of the market. I get that. But at the same time, like, we don't have any Chinese EVs here. Tesla is literally the only EV in Canada. And like, I've never seen a NIO in my life here. I've never seen an XPeng in my life here. Like, I've just never seen them. They just don't exist. And so my whole thing was that there's a reason Tesla's shipping from Shanghai to Canada. It's probably cheaper for them to do so. If they redirect and they ship from Fremont to Canada, just to avoid those tariffs, they're going to take a hit as a result of that, whether it's efficiency in production, time, costs, whatever it may be. It's more expensive to make cars in the US than it is in China. And so that's the reason why I said it's not going to be as bullish on Tesla as you might think. Yes, Tesla is basically unmatched in their competition here, but there is no competition here. And I don't think there's gonna be, like, the Chinese market is gigantic. There's no Chinese automaker that's like, you know what, guys, we need to penetrate Canada because that's where our cars are going to sell. Like, no, it's like we have like 40 million people here. It's nothing. It's like, you know, how many people does New York and California have together? That's probably the population of Canada, like as a whole, you know, like, and so my point is it's such a small market that maybe Tesla can raise prices even in Canada, because now it's like, absolutely, there's nobody there, but they still have local EV players. Like they have the Fords and the whatnot, and they're still competing with ICE players. So they can't really have any mobility in price. They're going to have more costs because they now have to ship out of Fremont. And there was no competition to speak of from China in the first place. And so that's why I'm saying it's not as bullish as I had initially hoped. It's just probably going to lead to fewer cars entering Canada altogether, most likely. And that's going to have its own, you know, downstream implications, because at the end of the day, like, or Tesla's going to eat the cost and do 100% tariffs, which is like, they're not. So it's just going to net hurt Canada. Now, the interesting piece here would be if they're trying to force Tesla to open a factory in Canada, which Tesla initially in 2019 or 2020, whenever it was, they were like seriously in talks to open a factory like an hour away from me. And they didn't, because the government didn't provide any subsidies. They didn't provide any benefits. And Tesla's like, you know what? Like, we have our pick of the litter of where we want to open a factory. And so I think ultimately they chose Texas, but, you know, Canada was an option, and I think still would be an option. But like, of course, you're going to open in Mexico before you open in Canada. They're going to provide you they're going to like roll out the red carpet for you. And if we have a government that is so stringent and so, how can I say, like, not flexible at all to the free market, because they're more in terms of like, if you have a spectrum of like completely laissez-faire and then complete government control, Canada is like way on one side of the spectrum in terms of the government control and regulations and, you know, hurdles aspect. They're never going to be rolling out the red carpet for Tesla. And so net, I just think it hurts. So I don't understand the move as much. That's my take at a high level. Yeah. Matt, you can be the deciding factor.
Sorry, I had something in my throat. Man, I don't really know. I don't really know how strong of a demand, like Tass said, is Chinese EVs specifically. Initially, when I had heard this, I thought it was talking about all Chinese imports. So upon further talking with you guys, I just realized it's on cars. So it's a lot less of an impact that I once thought as well, right? I initially thought it was all Chinese imports going up by 100%.
Still in aluminum too, although that's 25%. But yes, EV 100%.
So yeah, I mean, I'm just reading the article here. It's like 40,000 vehicles. So I mean, maybe it has an impact. But I mean, at the end of the day, if people want EV cars, they're going to get EV cars, and there's going to be a way. You know, if there's supply or if there's demand, there's going to be supply for it, right? And you know, I agree with Tass. I mean, if it means that they make cars from Freeport or Fremont, rather, Freeport's something else, but Fremont, then yeah, I mean, I think they're going to do that. But in terms of the impact to Tesla, I think it's kind of a small amount of the total overall sales that they have. So I wouldn't see it really impacting them too much. And then even still, I know that the Mexico, you know, Tesla 2.0 secret car thing is kind of somewhat on the way, somewhat not on the way. I don't know what the latest is with that, but it might just be a short-term impact. And I think generally what I've seen is you always see the Teslas that are always like 1 or 2 years old. So from what I'm going to observe, whenever they start making that brand new, super cheap Tesla, that's going to be the one that floods all the markets worldwide. And so it would bypass a lot of this Chinese EV impacts anyway, unless they're making those out of Shanghai as well. So I guess it all just depends as to all of that. But I'm surprised that you said that there's not more like Fords and other EVs that are seeing seeing the markets up there, Tavis? Because I'm starting to see a lot more alternative EVs rather than strictly just Teslas.
Yeah, I don't see a lot, man. It's not as common as you would think. Again, the market is small. Like nobody, whether it be SoFi, Celsius, Tesla, or others, like nobody is rushing to break into the Canadian market. It is very much a numbers game, and Canada just doesn't have the numbers. And then you add on top of that tariffs from the government that's disincentivizing. Well, yeah, of course Canada is going to be left behind because it's just you have to find a counterbalance at some point, right? You can't just have more government restrictions and a small population, and you're going to be priced out of the market because it's going to be in Canadian dollars. And so you have a Tesla car that's going to be like $90,000. It's going to be insane. So anyways,
90,000 Canadian is like what, $20?
Yeah, exactly. Like a Big Mac combo.
Yeah, good meal at McDonald's. So Matt, I'm going to push back on you just a little bit. Now, I think Tavis and I agree that Tesla is so large, the market in Canada is small, so it is a small impact. But you weren't clear, in my mind at least, whether it's net very small bullish, me, or net very small bearish. So, do you like Tavis or I better?
Well, I'll just be frank. I mean, I'm not as well educated on Tesla like either of you two, so I'm just going to eat that, and let people in the audience know that my opinion on any of this is probably worthless compared to what these two have put together. But go ahead, Tavis.
I'll just start a poll.
Tavis is just bypassing me in general because he's not going to like what I'm about to say. But no, I mean, I don't necessarily really know, man. I mean, I've always kind of been bearish on Tesla short term until I start to truly see some sort of other revenue streams coming through at a massive rate, right? And at the moment, the car industry has been eating margin really, really badly over the past couple quarters. So to me, I think, unless they find a way to get those margins back, I think that the stock needs a re-rating unless, you really have those robot revenue streams and all those other revenue streams that they promise keep coming through, or FSD, things that they keep promise coming through that are really going to be the driver for margin going forward, come back. So, I mean,
my guy, none of that shit. Rates are going to fall. Margins are going to go up. It's like very simple stuff.
Yeah. You say that, but I think Elon is more... What makes you think that margins are all of a sudden going to start going the opposite direction?
They're going to raise prices.
Almost certainly.
Is that words out of Elon's mouth? I haven't heard that.
No, but
in fact, I've heard the opposite for the past several quarters. That's why I'm coming.
Look, the main thing they want is to move merchandise. They want to move product. They don't want to, slow down the production line for any reason. They want to just move product. When rates go up, they're forced to lower prices because people would get priced out. First of all, they're not making large, big ticket item purchases. And second of all, with high rates and a high ticket price, you're like doubly hurting the consumer. And so Tesla is essentially forced to lower prices. And so the reverse is also true. Like if rates fall, then Tesla's going to raise prices to maintain that equilibrium because the demand is going to be higher where they still have to move the product.
I just don't see that being the case, considering they're trying to make cheaper and cheaper vehicles, especially opening up in Mexico and trying to get that cheaper vehicle out there as well. I mean, I'll eat my words. Like I said, you guys are more educated on this than I am, but I've heard nothing of the sort from management. And sometimes listening to management is the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, they have basically rights loss. So every doubling of production, and it depends on the industry, you save about 20% on the cost of goods and services. And we've seen, even without that doubling, that Tesla does a bit better than that. They're pretty incredibly efficient. And that's one of the reasons why Musk is in the position that he is. So, yeah, they definitely have the eye on margin. I don't think that's their most important thing. They want to sell volume, and that, of course, helps generate services. There's a lot of potential growth vectors. We've kind of gone over it before, so I don't think we necessarily need to here at the end of the show again. But yeah, we'll see. Like falling rates are going to help the company. it doesn't cure every single aspect of Tesla. There are some bearish things on the horizon, but ultimately, what's happening, I think, with full self-driving is telling of the future direction of the company. More so than that matters 50 million times more than what Canada does each and every week. And they might undo it next week, or they might just say, hey, you have to change your name to Tevis McGee to buy a Tesla. Who knows? It's just freaking Canada. So
Tevi, Mr. Maple Boy. What I will say is, what do you guys think? I mean, I don't know if you guys talked about this earlier, because I know I showed up 20 minutes late, but the recent news with Waymo and them kind of getting back after it in certain cities comparatively to other areas. I mean, do you think that that's bearish? Do you think that's bullish? I know a lot of people say Waymo's garbage, Waymo's going to zero, Google sucks.
That's wrong.
The best thing of all time is Tesla full self-driving, but here we are, waiting since 2015. So I see both sides, right? I think that there's a world where both opportunities continue to progress forward and do really good for the consumer. So I think it's pretty stupid to say Waymo to the moon and Tesla full self-driving to zero, when obviously Tesla also has a very good product. But I'm curious for you both, who are legitimate stakeholders in Tesla's success, what do you think of the Waymo news? And do you guys share the same sentiment as most Tesla bulls, that Waymo is garbage and no other company, including GM or other companies, can do some sort of autopilot?
Do you want to take that first, Roy, or do you want me to?
So I don't think Waymo is garbage. It's a very different approach to automated driving. Doesn't mean that it's wrong, but I think time will prove, just as it did for LiDAR, that the system that Tesla has in place is much more dynamic. You don't have to have people there driving streets and mapping out things in each and every city. That you can literally plop a Tesla with full self-driving in a city where no one has ever driven that route before on that Tesla, and it does fine. It does better than fine. I've seen people that were very, very skeptical of full self-driving under prior versions actually say, hey, I love it. I see where the company's going. I want to use it all the time. My wife, I'm a very good driver. I've only ever been in accidents where I've been hit, I think twice in 20-something years, it happened. So good driving record. My wife says that the previous version of full self-driving drives better than me. And she's not saying that to be mean or because we had a fight. Maybe. No, just kidding. But no, it's what Tesla is building takes more time. It's slower, but it's not a winner-take-all thing. This is not an Uber situation where Uber is going to eat alive all the old legacy. What they will do, and it is smart of Uber to want to partner with these automated vehicles, and it seemed like they were maybe interested in doing that with Tesla. They're not now. And I believe it's Waymo that they're partnering with. Is that correct? So the main thing that is holding these back, though, then the main competition is regulation. And so Waymo proving the concept and saying, hey, we're able to do this, and yes, they're doing it in a very different way than Tesla, is going to pave the way for more people to trust this automated driving, which is incredibly bullish for Google, because of Waymo, and also for Tesla. And I'm sure that there will be some other players as well. But Tesla's approach is just much more dynamic. And I think that it's a much better product. You don't have to have some remote control operator on the other end too. So, but it's not trash. Waymo seems like it's doing very, very well. It's a different approach. So yeah, it's good for both.
Yeah, just kind of curious, because I mean, at this point they have 100,000 basically Waymo autonomous driving rides per week in cities like San Francisco, Austin, Phoenix, Los Angeles. And so it's pretty funny that it goes after, they say the NHTSA, which is highway safety, whatever.
It's
20 reports of Waymo cars that either caused crashes or violated safety laws. I guarantee that 90% of those, maybe half, were actually the people being like, well, I can just say whatever the hell I want because there's no other, the police can't say otherwise unless they look at the cameras. So And I'm sure the problems that they have with that. So it's almost easier to just be like, oh, it was Waymo's fault and just call it a day. Nobody wants to go through the litigation of like actually proving that it wasn't and having to go through Google and all that. So I think it's pretty interesting. So I guarantee that 20 number is actually probably way less in terms of actual impacts. And like you said, I mean, there's always two parties to every accident, right? So
yeah, Danielle was right. It was Cruise, not Waymo, so that partnered. So yeah, it's biggest thing I think is just them paving the way for acceptance, adoption, and regulation. And so just like we wouldn't want as Tesla shareholders for Tesla really to have the only EV, literally, like that's not good, especially the ecosystem that Tesla is doing and developing, where they have products such as the supercharger network and potentially full self-driving out there and being sold to other car manufacturers, although you can do FSD with ICE conceivably. Tevis, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I want to cap this in about 5 minutes or so, because I didn't expect to be on this long. Okay, a couple things. I think the take of, oh yeah, we can have more than one player in this space. It's like I'll buy it today, but as more time passes, it becomes more polarized into a winner takes all type of market, or at the very, very least, the winner takes most. And Nala, calm down. I'm getting a chart ready. And the reason why is because all of this is based on miles driven and speed to market. And I really think that it's going to be very similar to, Tesla's supercharger network, where it's not worth it for these other players to build something in-house. They can just license Tesla's already existing technology and move much faster as a result of it. And so they were asked about this on the last earnings call, and they said, hey, we're not closed off to that possibility. It's going to obviously take a lot of chats about how do we do this sustainably. But the idea is that if Tesla rolls something out and they're like leagues ahead of everybody else, then it's going to be easier for the rest of the market to just license as opposed to try to build something out. Like, fuck GM Super Cruise, fuck Waymo, fuck all these other players. Like, they're just not fast enough, and it's going to be way too costly for them to try to catch up natively. They're just going to go license and pay a fee. And so that's, I think, the wider piece here. Can Waymo do that? Like, is Waymo's plans, if they solve full self-driving, to license it out to everybody? I don't know, maybe. I just look at how many miles driven with full self-driving to give me confidence. Sorry for all the swearing. I terrorize, not a lurker. Let me post this up. And this is, published by Tesla every quarter. This is your chart for whoever was asking Lisa. I know you were asking for a chart. So this is the Tesla vehicle safety report, and they publish this every quarter. And basically, they measure a couple of things. On average, in the U.S., how many miles are driven per one accident, and it's about 700,000 miles per accident. Tesla vehicles not using autopilot technology, and then Tesla vehicles using autopilot technology. So as it stands, you're like 14x more, safer, quote unquote, or more miles driven before an accident occurs. As of Q2 of 2024, Tesla recorded one crash for every 6.88 million miles driven in which drivers were using autopilot technology. For those who were not using autopilot, they recorded one crash every 1.45 million. And the most recent NHTSA data from 2022 shows that the US has a crash approximately every 670,000 miles. 670,000 to 6.8 million is a 10x improvement, essentially. And you see this number, let me zoom out. You can see this number sort of go up over time. So 2018, 2019, it's a little higher. 2020, it's a little higher. 2022, so thematically it's going up. And of course, there's going to be seasonality, right? Like in winter, it's going to be more crashes and all that kind of stuff. But I think that as this number, once it gets to a point where regulators are saying, okay, we have a high degree of confidence that this thing is way safer than the average driver, we want to approve this thing, that is going to be the point where it's game over for a lot of these players that are collecting data on their own right now, because they're not going to be able to move fast enough. And I'm sure they're not going to throw in the towel on day one. They're probably going to try to compete for the next 2, 3, 4 years. But like I said, the more time passes, the more this moves into like a, sort of bipolar result. It's either going to be black or white. And I just think that everybody who's in the middle, who's not even trying to win the race right now, they're just going to license whoever is the winner of the space. And there's a handful of players that are trying to win the race. Waymo is one of them. Tesla's the leader, in my opinion, just given the miles driven. And there's a couple that are just in the sidelines. Like, Ford, I don't think is really trying to be the market leader in full self-driving miles. GM, sure. I mean, they're making an effort, I guess. They just don't have a fleet that's big enough, and they don't have over-the-air software updates where, like, every night the fleet is just getting smarter as a whole in this hive mind.
Real quick, just for some context there, that was of autopilot. Autopilot comes standard with every single Tesla. It is. I use it all the time, every day. When I had my free full self-driving pilot under the previous version, which is bio reports not nearly as good as the current version, I was actually bearish on full self-driving because I'm like, autopilot is so freaking good. Why would anyone pay for full self-driving? Tried full self-driving. I'm like, okay, I was wrong. I was an idiot. Full self-driving is so much better than autopilot that I even still tempted, and we're going to do this in November, of getting the subscription. Maybe November is a time when I refuse to give it up. It's incredible. There's also built-in safety software as well that prevents you departing from lane or gives you alerts at different times, depending on how you set that up. That's why even without autopilot engaged, Tesla vehicles are still safer. And this also has a vector as far as, which we're limited on time, so we don't want to go this way, but Tesla has insurance, and they're just, think about the ramifications. If they have an insurance product, what they're able to do with that for full self-driver users and owners, or those that actively engage autopilot all the time, like that's a high margin product for Tesla. If they know that I engage autopilot like 90 something % of the time, they're like, oh man, all of a sudden it gets a lot less wrecks.
It's such a genius complementary product that fits in perfectly into their ecosystem, because they're already natively collecting all the driving data on you, whether you use or you don't use autopilot, just to train their fleet. And they're leveraging that data to give you a cheaper rate based on your driving, which is going to be the cheapest rate you're probably ever going to get, because all of the, auto insurers out there, the legacy ones, they still charge you more if it's, the car color is red or something stupid like that. And so, it's obviously an exaggeration, but you get my point. Is they're data driven in terms of how they provide the rates, and they can back it up because their autopilot technology and their full self-driving technology is even better than the average driver in the US. And so this is why I'm saying, people, I think, underestimate the advantage that Tesla has in full self-driving, how far ahead they are, and just in terms of the miles driven. And as their fleet gets bigger, that's going to have an exponential growth curve for them in terms of how quickly this thing is going to come to fruition. And yes, Matt, I understand they've been saying this shit since 2015 and they're still not live. But at the same time, I think that anybody who it's a game as to who reaches X, point first. And Tesla right now has the biggest fleet out there. They have the smoothest software update method, and they have a wide lead across everybody else. And so I would be dumbfounded if Waymo came out and says, hey, we've solved full self-driving and it's higher quality than Tesla, because all of the inputs point to Tesla doing it first, right? The miles, the fleet size, and how smooth the delivery mechanism is.
I think I don't want to say a little blinded of a statement. How many robo taxis have been successfully completed by a Tesla?
None.
And how many have been completed by a Waymo in 1 week?
Waymo.
I honestly don't.
I just think it's blinded, right? Like I think it's terrible to say and misleading to say that Tesla's years ahead, when in reality they're both pushing the envelope, right? And I hate when I hear these Tesla folks just blinded by their own shareholderness and just being like, "Oh my God, Tesla's the only company." It's like, no offense, but get your head out of your fucking ass. Like, right. And it's the truth.
So sometime, I guess in November, Matt, you and I'll have to go on a ride. I'll pick you up in my Tesla. We'll do, when I have the full self-driving engaged, we'll just cruise around. I guess let me ask you, have you been and used full self-driving this year?
Who, me?
Yeah.
No.
All right. So let's do that in November. We'll have full self-driving at some point. So we'll cruise around. That experience changed my mind and perspective, because again, before I was bearish on it. And then I'm like, okay, this is a lot.
I'm not bearish. I'm just saying you can't say that there's one and only company when it's obvious that one. You know what I mean? I hate when people are like, oh, you're bearish. I'm not bearish on anything. I think Tesla's done a phenomenal job. They've literally reshaped the auto industry, and I'll say that to Kingdom Come. But when I push back, everyone assumes that I'm just like hoping that it burns to the ground. That's just not the case. I think it's just you can't say things that are not true, and that's unfortunately makes me a bear, I guess, and the big bad man. But that's fine. I mean, if people don't want to hear the truth, that's fine.
But I will say there is one true company. Tevis, can you throw up the chart? Because Nala wanted another chart too, and we'll close on this.
I need to up my life. I need to up my life insurance.
You don't see the link that I put in there?
No. Just share your screen and I'll throw it up. And by the way, Matt, like all I said was I would be shocked if Waymo ends up winning that race just simply by the amount of inputs that Tesla has versus Waymo. Like, am I impressed by the progress? Absolutely. Am I open to the possibility that they might do it? Sure. I don't think that it's going to happen. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's like there's only one company out there.
That's kind of what your word said, though.
Here it is. The one company that's out there. We wanted a chart. The one true company, Palantir to the freaking moon. And on that end, I don't have a mic, but well, here we go. Mic drop.
That's what you want to share. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining the Bootleg Weekly. I know we went a little bit over. Next week, I don't know if we can do it Tuesday, but maybe we'll do it Wednesday, because I'm gonna be on a beach. It's gonna be, we didn't talk about Redfin. Fuck. It's okay. We'll talk about Redfin next week.
Is Redfin going to the moon?
It is, ironically. Yes.
Yeah.
The blood and urine comment.
Oh, I remember that last week. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. It's these are the things that works. Cool. Thanks everybody for being here. Thanks, Matt, for being a special guest and shitting all over Tesla for me.
Tesla to the moon, my guy. I'm gonna. You convinced me the next couple weeks to load up the boat.
Yep, I will work on your tan, Tevis.
You did it with SoFi. Maybe you can do it with Tesla this time.
Man, I am so tired of your shit on SoFi. You're just like, Tevis convinced me to buy SoFi. It's not gone to the moon yet.
So tired of that on his own stocks, though. He does that on his own stocks.
So tired. I'm just praying for Rocket Lab to go to zero so I can say I told you so and buy it.
Matt is too. Matt will buy an infinite number of shares.
I'll buy as many shares as I can.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, everybody. See ya.
Cheers.